got Matthew. How are you doing?
Great, thank you. How's everybody doing?
Good.
Good. I was there. I was watching the time come up for 3 o'clock, and I was like, "All right, are we good here?" And then even Andrew Ryder on my board, he came in and said, "Are you fine?" I said, "We're working it out right now. We're working
Yeah.
it
That's right. Like Saskia and I were saying, we'd ask us about financial planning, insurance, for me, education, mentoring. Sure, we can answer your questions. Technology, maybe not so much.
out." And that was the fun part. I was here for the whole conversation, so I was listening to it all. So I just really, and it was funny as you were talking about it. And you said, "See if you can request again." I was in the midst of typing. It won't let me request again. So that's why I was so fast with that one.
That's perfect. Well, welcome. Thank you so much to both of you for being here and doing this with us today. We're so happy that you can be here. And thank you so much for all your volunteering efforts with Advocis. It's much appreciated.
Thank you for having us. Appreciate it.
Thanks for doing this yourself.
Oh yeah, my pleasure. Yeah, mentoring has meant a lot to me over my career. I have to say, I don't think I would be in this business still if I didn't have a mentor very early on in my career. I still have people that I go to for really good advice. Sometimes they tell me things that I don't want to hear, but it's something that I need to hear. And have been fortunate over the last year to do a little bit of working as a mentor myself with a mentee, and that's also been really valuable to me as well. I've learned a lot from the mentees that I've had. So I wanted to get your thoughts on, what mentoring means to you, what it's meant for your career as well. So Saskia, if you want to kick off with what mentoring means for you.
Yeah, for sure. So I think they always make a lot of jokes in our industry that no one wants to be a life insurance agent when they're growing up. But for me, my dad was actually in the industry, so I was aware of it for quite a while. And that's probably been my biggest mentor because we didn't overlap in the industry. He got out of it like 5-10 years before I got into it. But having someone to bounce ideas off of was huge. And obviously ask stupid questions when you're new. But for me, honestly, the biggest thing was having a mentor allows you to trust your own decisions. So there would be things which I would think, maybe I want to build my business this way. So one of the biggest ones for me is obviously with a lot of young people, there's a big push to have social media presence. And despite being on Instagram Live, that is not my usual way of doing things. And so for me, I build my business through referrals pretty much exclusively. And having someone to bounce that off of who's saying, no, you can do it that way. It does work. If that's how it's going to make sense to you, do it, was huge. So obviously there's a bunch of people who are currently in our industry who are also great mentors. We do like the Women's Day event for our chapter personally for Advocis. And there's a lot of great women in the industry. It's obviously quite male dominated. So I think that that's been fantastic to see people who have done it before you and how they've built their business. So for me, yeah, honestly, it's been fantastic.
Great. Matthew?
Yeah, first I love hearing that story about your dad being in the industry. That's fantastic. I think looking at, regardless of what stage of life you're at, looking at that mentor experience, whatever it is, I know a lot of times we want to think we came here by ourselves and we did it all on ourselves with no help, but the reality is we did it. And I think that's a big part. Again, I have multiple coaches and multiple mentors that I talk to daily. Much like yourself, Christine, I talk to people daily looking for that advice. And I think working with the young advisors now, it's key for me as well. Sharing those wins and those losses I've experienced growing up and in this industry and industries before, and having that conversation of, again, being in it together and really seeing the struggles and understanding it together. I think it's a big part. And again, I know people that had an impact on me really shaped it when I felt alone a lot of the time. And I wasn't alone, right? So having that communication, that's why I like sharing and talking with the younger generations that come as I'm getting older in the room. And my young advisors continue to remind me about that too. So it's good to see.
Yeah, that's so true, that we're not in this alone, and especially with these times, right? It's, I think, so important for newer advisors in the industry to know that they're not alone. They have people to go to, maybe advisors that have been in the business for a long time haven't gone through quite something like this. They might have gone through a downturn in the markets, but not a global pandemic. But you know what? They still have a lot of great lessons, I think, because they've seen lots of different downturns in the markets and other things, and they can give lots of good advice. So Saskia, what do you think makes a great mentor?
I think obviously the same thing that makes a great advisor. It's going to be listening for me. I think a lot of the time our instinct is to be problem solvers and to just jump into, you have a problem, let me solve it for you. But I think with mentorship, I've found personally that people who've mentored me and kind of walk you around to bouncing ideas off of them and figuring out where you want to go and how you're going to do it, that's been really integral for me. I think obviously accessibility, like you want someone who is in your corner and is, you know, when you call them, you leave feeling better than when you called. That's a big one. Like in our industry, I find staying motivated, staying upbeat, staying excited, especially because as Matt was saying, like it can be a little bit of a lonely industry at times. That's really important to have someone where you can call if you're having a bad day or if you're having a big work success and you want to celebrate with someone who understands that. The biggest thing for me, I think, is making sure that you have someone who you know has your best interest at heart and is really going to be there backing you. They're motivated to help you succeed wherever your career takes you.
That's awesome. And Matthew, what do you think makes a great mentor?
Again, I got it to Matt, Saskia. It's a great point there, right? That best interest in mind, I think, is a key point, right? And I love the line that you said about after it's done, you feel better about the conversation. I think that communication is a big part of it. Having that little bit of vulnerability yourself, and having a little bit of humility. You know, I talk to my young team about that, and again, my losses, the things I've done wrong as well, and understanding that it's okay to feel the way you're feeling, right? And we always talk about riding that roller coaster together, and I think that's a big part with my team that I really focus on. Is just, I don't care how big or how small, your business is my business, and I want to help you grow that as well, right? And it's something that I think that's helped us grow together as well, and I think that level of trust where they don't always feel they have to know everything come, or I always joke and say, if you knew everything, you were fine, I wouldn't have a job. I wouldn't have a job here, right? So I think it's something, having that commitment to them, and again, that level of trust where we can come in and be vulnerable together, share. And I think back to Saskia's point as well, ultimately at the end of the conversation, looking at each other and how do we feel? How are we feeling? Do we step forward, or we where we started, or we step back? So I think really again, continuing to grow together, it makes a big difference having that person you trust for sure.
Yeah, I totally agree with both of you. You can't really have an effective relationship if, you know, mentee is not comfortable saying pretty much anything. You know, like you said, Saskia, asking dumb questions, that's going to happen all the time. You have to be comfortable to say, this might be a silly question, but I'm going to ask it. And trusting them to have your best interests and to be vulnerable with each other on even both sides. And even a mentor might not have all the answers, but you know, at that point in their career, they at least might know where to go to find them, right? So no, I think that's really, really great. So what have you found, Saskia, in your chapter? What's worked in your chapter as it relates to mentoring?
So we're doing a couple different things. In our chapter, we're sort of unique because we're one of the bigger ones. Obviously, Toronto's a big one, Vancouver's a big one. So it doesn't have quite the same at-home feel naturally that maybe a smaller chapter does. But I think we do a lot of really targeted events to specific groups to try and bring people together where you do see how much support you actually have here. So for example, I've mentioned the women's luncheon. We do an LGBTQ plus event. We do different geographic locations because we're fairly spread out. So we'll do that kind of thing. A lot of people, like for me personally, I found what was really helpful was linking up with a more seasoned advisor. And so what happened in my situation was that one of the advisors at our MGA had gotten in a car accident and gotten a concussion. And so she had this big workload, but didn't have the same capacity to deal with it at that point. So we ended up getting introduced, and we got along super well, and now we still work together. And so obviously I still build my own practice, but having someone who's already done it and built it the same way, that was a great supplement, especially when I was starting out. So yeah, I honestly think that for our chapter, we have been doing a lot of succession planning events. We've been doing, as I said, the targeted events for newer advisors. I would suggest anything like that. Go to the events, get to know people. That was a huge thing for me, was getting involved in Advocis. Obviously, Matthew and I are both on the boards. That was a really great way to get involved. But I mean, as you all know, advisors are really chatty in our industry. And once you start talking to them, you'll get great advice, great insights. But yeah, that's what I would do. And that is what we do.
That is very true. That's actually one of the things that I love about our industry, is that, you know, we're naturally people persons, and we're drawn to having conversations, and this comes very natural to us, which is really nice. I love that about working with the advisors in our industry. So Matthew, talk to us about your chapter. What's worked for your chapter?
Yeah, and I love the question. I think having that like-mindedness, right, is something that as we look at that, again, seeing the growth of the advisors, again, Saskia's point about being on the board, it's something to bring people in, to show them as they grow that there's people here to help and support them. I think the board top to bottom has that mindness of really looking at that and saying, okay, we want young folks coming here. There's going to be a time when we're not on the board anymore, and who's that next generation coming in for the board? And I love the chatty folks, advisors, very, very chatty folks, or they're not. I find sometimes the young advisors, and you'll see as we talk to some of them, got to pull a little bit out of them, and then they get going, right? So again, that openness and sharing. And we have a bunch of different folks on the board, but again, we all come together and focused on that one theme of growing our membership and growing the advisors and growing the advice in Canada. I think is a big thing we all share together. So I think that's really pushing our board to new levels for it. And Saskia, you and I are actually going to talk about some events that you're hosting there, because you gave me some ideas that we're not doing over here. So I'd love to steal some of that. So it's great.
Yeah, the Women's Day event, things like that are fantastic, because it's true. It is still a male-dominated business, and it is important to realize that there are really successful female advisors in the business, for, you know, the newer female advisors coming in, and every other, you know, again, it's kind of a white-dominated business still, and so it's important to show people of all races that you're welcome in this industry and you can really succeed in this industry. So all of those events are super important. So Saskia, what have you found with the pandemic? You know, what can we share with advisors, newer advisors, on what they can gain from mentorship? And does it matter if it's a pandemic or not? You know, can we do virtual mentoring and things like that? Does that work just as well?
Yeah, so that's a very good question. I think obviously for the pandemic was interesting because, as we were saying earlier, the pandemic was new to everyone, regardless of how long you've been in the industry. And so the mentorship changed the same way all of our meetings changed. I think the key thing is still the same. The fundamentals still the same. We're still here to provide great service. Mentor-wise, you're still there to provide great service. So the underlying motivation is still there. Clients still need insurance. There is still business to be had. I think a lot of people who pivoted their businesses actually did really well in the pandemic. And that was very interesting to see, because I don't think a lot of people would have thought that that was going to happen. I think my biggest thing I always said to myself and to everyone who knew me going into this industry, and my biggest advice to everyone in this industry who's newer, is survive for 5. So as long as you can stay in the industry for 5 years, you will be fine. And for those opening years, I think it's a little bit of a hit. A lot of advisors come in as their second career, and they're all of a sudden not making great money, and it's a little bit stressful. But as long as you can stay there for 5 years, that's the target. So focus on the activity, don't focus on the dollars, and just make sure you're talking to the right number of people, you're doing the right things, and the money will come eventually. Mentorship wise though, I think it's going to be the exact same thing. They're just going to have to keep stepping up for the people that you're mentoring, keep being positive, keep them motivated. Pandemic's hard on everyone, so really just being there for each other.
Yeah. And even I would say, yeah, especially in the pandemic, it's so important to be there for each other and still build connections. And you can just do it in a virtual way and, you know, over a phone
Exactly.
or over Zoom or over whatever, right? Matthew, what about you? What have you found with the pandemic? Newer advisors, how are they doing?
Yeah, I'll jump to that one side. I saw Nick for the Advocis Advocacy Network. Yes, please reach out to your local chapters to join that. For a little plug there. As we look at that, yes, going back to the start of the pandemic, again, looking at my team, and as they look at you and they say, "So what do you do in this situation?" And while you're really sitting there thinking, "That's a great question, right? It's a great question." I've never seen it before either. But I think having that communication and just having that calmness and again striving together for the ultimate goals really helped all of us grow together. And to the newer advisors that are on the line here as well, if that was in your first or second or in your first 5 years, congratulations for still being here too. It's been wild times for sure. And I don't want to get into that too much, but it's really looking at that. I think going back to Saskia's point, and I don't mean to copy off that, it's that activity, right? It is that activity. It's like just keep the wheels rolling, right? When we stop momentum, pushing that car again to get it started is that much harder. So I think continuing to be there and caring for the clients. Life's going to go on during the pandemic and well beyond the pandemic. So I think just keeping that momentum rolling. And even if people are on hold a little bit, them knowing that you're here for them as their advisor or their trusted person, whatever it may be, goes a long, long way. And again, helping them breathe a little bit more and just having that confidence in themselves and their ability to grow as well. So I think that's a big part. I love that momentum and the activity. I think is key.
So switching gears a little bit, Saskia, how do you think a mentee can be a good mentee?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think transparency is going to be a big one. Don't pretend. It's the same thing. Like if you're in a meeting and your client tells you they make more money than they make, and they're all of these things, and you're trying to create a plan and you find out it wasn't correct numbers you're working with, it becomes frustrating because you have to redo it. So it's the same thing we were saying earlier is be vulnerable, tell them what's actually going on. If you're having an awful week, let them know. If you're having a great week, let them know. But that way, at least they can actually help you. I think also for being a mentee, recognize what the level is. So set expectations of time. So you don't want to be constantly, you know, every day there's 5 questions because this other person who is your mentor also has a job. So I think you both have to be on the same page with what the actual commitment level is. Are you doing a check-in call once a month? Are you doing a check-in call once a week? Are you just able to call them ad hoc all the time? Like that was obviously, I was saying earlier in this, my dad has been a big mentor for me. So obviously I endlessly call him with things, but that's just part of the deal. So know that level of commitment that they are willing to put in as well.
Yeah, different rules apply when the mentor-mentee relationship is
sure.
family, right?
Yeah, exactly. You have to take my calls. Yeah,
that's right. Exactly. Matthew, what do you think? What makes a good mentee?
Yeah, we talk about, I mentioned it earlier, riding that roller coaster together. Right? When you're scared, let's talk about being scared. When you're excited, let's build on that and see what made us excited there as well. Expectations and communication, I think that's key as well. I think we always need to be, whether it is that once a week or daily or whatever it may be. As a mentor, I think it's key to set that expectation. As a mentee, same thing, like having that there and knowing what's expected of them on the side as well, that will help get the bike going. At times we sometimes say get the bike going, but keep pedaling. And again, if you're wobbling a little bit, let's talk about that and see how we can straighten out. So again, going back to it, expectations, communication, as I always say, just ride that scary roller coaster of ups and downs and the fun of it together. Definitely always a key for us.
Perfect. And Saskia, what do you find? What questions are newer advisors bringing to mentors?
Yeah, so this is an interesting one. We were talking about this a little bit before. For me, I find it depends on what situation the advisor's in. So if they're an independent advisor, there's a lot more information needed about how do you actually do the technical side of things. Our industry is known for being very fast-paced, having a lot of acronyms. It's not overly welcoming when you're new in some cases. And so while the people are great, there is a lot of actual technical knowledge you need to know. So I think on the independent side, you hear more of that. On the people who are tied to a company kind of situation, they a little bit more, I think, have a strong training for that part on the technical side, but need a lot more on the how do you get referrals, how do you prospect, how do you build the business, how do you stay in contact with them, what's the level of expectation, what are other advisors doing. I think that sort of seems to be the split that I'm seeing. And I think overall, we were also talking about Advocis putting out this PFA course. And so for your PFA course, it's a really great one, professional financial advisor, because it does both. And so I was talking to a lot of new members recently who had taken the course, and they were all saying that they took very different things from it, but it was super valuable. And they really liked how that was helping supplement their business. So I think this is a huge game changer in the industry, that now there's actually a standardized course to help you out in your early years, really building that business from the technical side, but also just the actual building your business side.
Thanks. Yeah, I agree. It's a great designation. It's a great program. It just really covers everything from A to Z for a new advisor. And it fills such a big void that was really in our industry. You know, we always had kind of the higher end designations, but there wasn't much for the newer advisor to come in and do. And I love, same thing that you say, that it's so true. It combines the technical stuff with all the business building tools that you need, which is so critical for newer advisors.
Absolutely.
So, Matthew, what do you think? What questions have you heard newer advisors asking? What do you think that they need help with?
I think a big one is what's next. Right, we get the question, what's next a lot? And I don't mean getting ahead of themselves and prescribing before they sit down for their fact find or anything. It's as you come in, and I do work with a company that has some good training. What we call it drinking out of the fire hose. Right? There's a lot coming at you at once, and you're trying to lap up as much water as you can. The reality is you're not going to. So, and I always say, what's next? They make your first phone call. They said yes. What's next? Okay, so let's have our intro meeting. They won't have another meeting. What's next? And I keep thinking that. So it's that ongoing stage until you're getting to that full process and understanding when to ask for referrals, the best timing for it, more objection handling. I think that's a big one too. It's almost, I don't like the question, what did I do wrong? Didn't say you did. Just because they didn't say yes doesn't mean you did anything wrong. Right? I think it's understanding that and having conversations around some of the things that they may not be uncomfortable with. And that might be the next, what's next? All right, well, let's get more comfortable being uncomfortable, to steal some lines from the industry out there, right? And I think, but that's a big one that I hear a lot in the office, out of the office, whatever it may be, is what's next? I'm ready to run. I'm ready to run. Just steer me in the right direction. I think it's a big part for us, for sure.
That's great. Yeah, I agree. Drinking from a fire hose, it's so true. I mean, our industry is really complicated. There's so much to learn. It's a really difficult. It can be a really difficult industry, and so that's, having a mentor is just so critical for newer advisors. And I agree, and it's great. Not just the PFA, but the practice development series and the different programs that we have where we match that. Mentors with the newer advisors are just. That's why they're doing so well, because it's so needed. And it's great. I think it brings a lot of value to mentors too, right? Like it's giving back to an industry that they've been in for a very long time. And I think it's such a great way to leave the industry in a better place than when you started, and to and it's great for your client. I mean, you have to think about your clients, your business, what's going to happen, if you retire, things like that, like what's going to happen. These are your clients that are with you. You have to make sure that they're taken care of. So yeah, it's really valuable, I think, for both sides, but also for mentors to feel valuable, to feel like they've given back to our industry. Saskia, do you have anything to add to that? Why be a mentor?
I think being a mentor, it's what you're saying. It's really rewarding. I think, like we do in our industry, you never stop learning. And part of being a mentor is you're constantly learning. You're seeing it through your own eyes, but you're also ideally seeing it through someone else's and their experience. I think in our industry as well, there is a bit of a gap. I know when I started in people telling you, all right, so here's how you start with your cold calling. And that obviously was not how I was going to do it for myself. And so it does work for some people for sure, but having people constantly coming through and saying, okay, like, how do we as an industry raise the bar? How do we come together and share knowledge? Because what works for one person might not work for another. And so that would be a big thing, I think, on the mentorship side as well, is make sure you're matching yourself up with people who you look at and you say, I want to build my business like you. And we have all types of clients. We need all types of people in our industry. Therefore, we also need all types of mentors. So whether you're someone who is a seasoned advisor and thinks that you can help someone else succeed a little bit more than you maybe were helped, or you had a great experience and you want someone else to have the same experience, I would say get involved. Obviously, on the mentee side, it's fairly obvious why you need a mentor. For most people to be in this industry, that's going to be a huge help for you. But yeah, I would say on the mentor side, it's always, you just keep learning, and it does make you feel good to give back, because I think you want people to have that experience that you either had or wished you had.
Good point. Yeah, Matthew, what would you say? Why be a mentor?
Yeah, and I love the points. Saskia, you're going to go first. I love this.
I love it too. It's,
So fair.
it's much easier.
Yeah, right. It's fair point. I'll take A, B, C, and D, please. And as we look at that, but again, that giving back, and not only just helping the younger advisors, or younger generations, or whoever may be coming as well, it's also helping out the public and helping out the community as well, ensuring that. And not saying we know everything as mentors, it's not the case at all. I think as we continue to learn and we're all growing together as well, really looking at that and just recognizing that we want to make an impact on, I say younger generation, the community, making sure that as I get older too, it's still in a good spot, right? And really looking at that. And it's something that if we have the time to give back, why not? There's a lot of take in the world. Let's have a little bit more to give back, and I think it goes a long way for folks, and then they'll pay it forward as well, and just making it a little bit better if you can. It'd be much appreciated for sure.
Okay, so Matthew, this time I'm going to start with you, because it's true. It hasn't been fair that we haven't been switching. I'm giving Saskia.
So I got to pop out for a second. I'll come back in 30 seconds.
Yeah,
that's right. So what about mentors that are people, advisors that have been in our business for a while that say, I don't have time, I'm so busy, I run a really busy practice, I've got a whole, I've got employees that I got to manage and my big book of business, I don't have time, can I do this? What do you think?
Right, Saskia, anything you'd like to add? No, just as we talk about that, I think it's okay. Right, it's fine. It shouldn't be a job. Like, I won't say a job, but it shouldn't be a challenge or something that they're not going to enjoy either. Right? It can't be like, oh, my phone's ringing. It's this guy again that I said I would be a mentor for, and not looking forward to it. But I think it's okay to push back. It has to be the right time and the right commitment. It doesn't. I don't want anybody to feel that, oh, Matt's calling me again to do something for him, and feel like it's a big task. I think really having the time available to put in for starters and be willing to do that, it has to be top to bottom, not a chore. I think is a big part.
And now Saskia, over to you. What do you think?
Okay, I'm going to go a different approach. So I agree with you that you do definitely want to be in a position where you're enjoying what you're doing. If you're going to hate the task, don't do it. But I do think that also you can manage the time. So it's what I was saying earlier with the expectations of time. Sometimes it's literally someone is having a bad day, or they just got a bad email from a client and they just want to call you and vent for 5 minutes. And you can say to them, you know what, that sucks. We've all dealt with it. Everyone's been there. Go take a walk, grab a coffee, come back, and you'll be fine. Like, it can be something very fast. It can be a 2-minute phone conversation that just switches their day around, or vice versa. So I think as long as you're managing the expectations of what you actually have to give, like if you don't want to be on call, don't tell your mentee you're on call. Tell them we have this scheduled time in our calendars Monday for half an hour, or whatever you're willing to do. But temper expectations.
Yeah.
One last, I love that. And it's something that, and again, going to the combination of the two of them, I think, sharing with my team as well, I think that's something they put back on that. I know you're busy. I know you're busy. That's my problem to have, right? It's my problem. I love Saskia's point there to manage that. right? It's my problem. I committed to this. I'm involved in your business. I'm ready to commit to it. So leave the time management, again, we're in it, so leave it to us. I think you get that a lot. Oh, I'm too busy. I don't want to bug you. That's why we're here, right? So I think it's something, I love that one.
We got a good point below. Another key is to not jump from mentor to mentor. So I do think that too, like if you're going to work with someone, they already know you, they know your business. And that's what I was saying before about make sure you're choosing someone whose business you want to emulate, because ideally it's a long-term relationship. Ideally, you're not just coming in for a 5-minute chat and then leaving. So I think that's a great point.
Huge.
Yeah, that's true. I know, right? Don't try to date 10 people at a time. Don't try to mentor with 10
Yeah,
minutes.
this isn't speed dating here. We're trying to go for
It's
long-term relationships.
That's right. It's not speed mentoring.
Yeah.
I know. Well, that's really great. Do you guys have anything else that you want to add?
I don't think so. Like, I really appreciate your time. I'm going to stick to my survive for 5 and stay positive and help out each other where you can. I actually love with our industry that despite finance having this kind of reputation for being a little bit cutthroat, I think especially Advocis members I've noticed are really in it to help each other. It's this idea that, I mean, that's literally our motto, not for ourselves alone, right? So we're stronger as a group. There's enough clients for everyone. I think I love this person who just commented, Saskia for mayor.
That's awesome.
And I think honestly, we all, especially in the pandemic, it's really proved you need each other. You need your colleagues. So stay strong, stay connected.
Really great point. Matthew, how do you want to end it off?
Yeah, huge point there. And again, thank you everyone for tuning in. Thanks for doing this. Again, this is as far out of my comfort zone as I can get. So I think as I share that with some of the folks on my team as well and being a mentor, I think that's how I do. So that's why I volunteered for that. And I think continue to have that and keep pushing forward. And if anyone else out there wants to get involved and be a mentor, reach out to your local chapters or national or whoever it may be to get in there and keep giving back. I think great group. I love the board here. I love connecting with the other boards to give back. And I think we're going to keep getting stronger and stronger and come out of this stronger than ever. And our clients are going to appreciate it and the public's going to appreciate it. And I think you can look at yourself and be happy about it as well. So again, I really appreciate everybody coming on and definitely thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you both. This was really fun. Yeah, completely out of my comfort zone too. I'm really happy that we did this. It was really fun. And thank you both so much for everything again that you do. We wouldn't be able to function as an association without our volunteers, and we appreciate so much the time and energy that you give. If anybody is interested in becoming an Advocis volunteer, you can visit myadvocis.ca/volunteer. You can find more information there. Or as Matthew said, connect with your local chapter, with the board. Always happy to help out. Look at some of our programs that offer mentoring, practice development series. Under 5 After 5 is what it's called in some chapters. Getting established, lots of different study groups and things like that we offer. And yeah, so thanks everyone for joining us. And thank you so much to Saskia and Matthew for joining us today.
Thank you. Have a great one.